They say in Abuja, a new bride never truly knows her mother-in-law until she tastes food from the second kitchen. Adana discovered this truth too late when she found herself staring at her reflection in a pot of soup, watching her own face ripple and change into something that wasn't quite human anymore. But to understand how Adana found herself at the edge of transformation, we must go back to the day she first noticed the strange blue light coming from behind her mother-in-law's compound. In a village deep in the heart of Abuja, pots held secrets deeper than soup. But Adana, raised in Lagos's glittering heights, laughed when her grandmother spoke of such things. Nwam, listen well, her grandmother gripped her wrist on the morning of her wedding. In the village, even the air carries old magic. The old woman's eyes, sharp as eagle feathers, fixed on Adana's face. These modern men, they wear fine suits and drive big cars, but their mothers remember the old ways. But Adana merely smiled, adjusting her white wedding gown. This is 2024, not some folktale. Obinna is different. Different? Her grandmother cackled. Just like the fish is different from the hook, until both end up in the same pot. She pulled out a coral necklace, its red beads gleaming like embers. Wear this. Never take it off. It doesn't match my dress, Adana protested. Mbah, your beauty can become your curse. Her grandmother pressed the necklace into her hands. The beads felt warm, alive. When the waters rise, coral will be your only friend. Remember, a dancing masquerade may look beautiful, but wise eyes look for the feet beneath. Adana accepted the necklace to please her grandmother, but she was so distracted by her preparations for the wedding. She missed the fear that flashed across the old woman's face. The wedding transformed Adana's life in ways she never expected. Obinna had courted her in Lagos with helicopter rides and candlelit dinners, his business success evident in every gesture. I'll give you the world, he promised, winning her heart with dreams of their modern life together. But those dreams shattered against village traditions. Custom demanded they live with his mother for the first year. Therefore, Adana found herself trading her penthouse apartment for a sprawling family compound ruled by Mama Obinna. Chineke, Mama Obinna exclaimed upon meeting her. Is this what Lagos girls look like now? Too thin, too proud, walking like a peacock when you should bow like a dove. Mama Obinna was a tall woman whose grey hair moved like water even in still air. Her wrapper, always blue as deep ocean, seemed to ripple with hidden currents. But it was her eyes that disturbed Adana most, dark pools that held secrets older than the village itself. The compound housed Obinna's 3 brothers and their wives. Chichi, the newest wife before Adana, had once been a fashion blogger in Port Harcourt. This village life, Chichi whispered during Adana's first week, her designer sunglasses and sharp wit still intact then. It takes some adjustment. But something in her voice wavered, like a song hitting the wrong note. Days passed, and Chichi's designer clothes disappeared, replaced by traditional wrapper. Her quick laugh faded to quiet smiles, transforming her from sparkling river to still pond. The other wives moved through the compound like shadows, their eyes downcast, their voices barely whispers. When they spoke, water seemed to ripple beneath their words. Something about these women made Adana's skin crawl. Don't mind them, Obinna said when Adana mentioned it. Village life is different. You'll adjust. But adjustment proved difficult. Every morning, Mama Obinna appeared with a new criticism. Your wrapper is too tight, your hair too loose, and still so thin. A proper wife must have meat on her bones. Thus the battle over food began. Mama Obinna, maintained two kitchens. The first sat near the main house, ordinary and bright, where she prepared everyday meals. But the second kitchen, it stood apart, half hidden by twisted mango trees. Strange symbols marked its walls, symbols that seemed to shift and swim when viewed from the corner of one's eye. "Come eat from my special kitchen," Mama Obinna would insist, her voice honey-sweet, but her eyes sharp as fish hooks. "I'll teach you to cook the old ways, the true ways." But something about that second kitchen made Adana's coral necklace grow warm against her skin. The aroma that drifted from that kitchen was unlike anything Adana had ever smelled. Sweet as ripe mangoes, but with an undertone of salt and secrets. She watched as the other wives ate there freely, their transformation subtle but steady. Week by week, they changed, growing rounder, quieter, their eyes taking on the glassy sheen of still water. Their movements became fluid, graceful in an unsettling way, as if their bones had turned to water. One evening, Chichi caught Adana's arm in the garden. Gone were the designer sunglasses, the sharp wit. Her eyes, once bright with fashion gossip, now reflected depths that shouldn't exist in human eyes. "Adana, my sister, why do you resist? The food, it opens your eyes to such wonders." "What wonders?" Adana asked, but Chichi only smiled, her teeth gleaming strangely in the dusk light. As the weeks passed, Obinna's visits grew shorter, his eyes more distant. The successful businessman who had promised her the world now seemed to fade like a mirage. "Just eat with Mama when she asks," he pleaded. "The other wives never complain. Why must you always fight our ways?" "But something is wrong," Adana insisted. "Haven't you noticed how they change? The way they move, the way they speak?" Chichi doesn't even remember her favorite designers anymore. "Enough!" Obinna's voice cracked like thunder. His eyes, usually warm brown, reflected an odd blue light. "You think your Lagos ways make you better? That you know more than generations of tradition? Eat the food, Adana. Make peace with Mama. Or what? Or perhaps I was wrong about you being the right wife for this family." The threat in Obinna's words hung like storm clouds over the compound. Therefore, Adana found herself watching, waiting, gathering fragments of truth from whispered conversations and strange occurrences. Late one night, she heard Chichi crying in the garden. "I can't remember," Chichi sobbed to another wife. "My mother's face. I can't remember what she looked like before." "Shh." The other wife's voice rippled strangely. "It doesn't matter now. We have a new mother. The waters provide." But something in Chichi's tears stirred Adana's resolve. She began observing Mama Obinna more closely, noting how the older woman's movements seemed to flow rather than walk, how puddles formed in her footsteps despite the dry season. The second kitchen's activities grew more mysterious. Blue light pulsed from its windows at odd hours, and strange singing drifted through the compound, songs in languages that made Adana's coral necklace vibrate against her skin. "Inna, you grow too bold with your watching," warned Namdi, the compound's oldest servant. His eyes darted nervously as he spoke. "Some questions are better left unasked, especially when the moon swells full." "But you've seen things, haven't you?" Adana pressed. "In all your years here." Namdi's voice dropped to a whisper. "I saw the first wife before your time. She asked too many questions. Then she disappeared. They said she went home to her family, but..." He touched his throat. "Sometimes, late at night, I hear her voice in the songs from that kitchen." That evening, Mama Obinna cornered Adana in the compound's main courtyard. "You think you're clever, girl? Asking questions? Turning my servants against me?" Her hair writhed like angry snakes. Perhaps it's time you learned your place. My place? Adana felt her coral grow warm. And where exactly is that, Mama? Look at you standing there with your Lagos pride. But we'll see how proud you are when Obinna takes a second wife, one who knows how to respect tradition. The threat struck Adana like a physical blow. For the first since she arrived, she didn't just feel uneasy. She felt she was in danger. That night, unable to sleep, Adana paced her room. The sound of singing pulled her toward her window. The full moon cast everything in silver light, but the glow from the second kitchen pulsed an otherworldly blue. She watched as Chichi and the other wives walked toward the kitchen, their movements fluid and strange. Their wrappers seemed to float around them, and their feet, Adana squinted, their feet barely touched the ground. Come, sister, Chichi's voice drifted up, though she hadn't turned her head. The water's call. Something in that voice pulled at Adana, tugging her toward the door. The coral at her throat grew hot, therefore breaking whatever spell had tried to take hold. But curiosity and desperation drove her forward. She had to know the truth, had to understand what power held her husband's family in its grip. Wrapping her grandmother's coral necklace tightly around her wrist, Adana followed the wives into the night. The scene at the second kitchen doorway turned her blood to ice. Chichi and the others danced in circles, but their bodies had changed. Scales glittered on their skin. Their eyes glowed with pale blue light, and fins rippled where their ears should be. They moved like creatures underwater, though they danced in air. And there, in the center, stood Mama Obinna, transformed. Her grey hair had become living water, cascading down her back in impossible waves. Her wrapper rippled with actual waves, and when she smiled, her teeth gleamed sharp as fish bones. Ah, finally, Mama Obinna's voice rippled like water over rocks. Our stubborn daughter joins us. What have you done to them? Adana's voice shook, but she stood her ground. Mama Obinna laughed, sending ripples through the air itself. Done? I've blessed them. You think our family's wealth comes from Obinna's business sense? She gestured at the transformed wives. The men in our family prosper because their wives serve Mamiwata herself. Serve? Adana watched in horror as Chichi twirled past, her eyes now entirely black like deep ocean. One taste of my soup. Mama Obinna lifted a ladle from a pot that glowed with blue fire. And you'll join our sacred circle. No more resistance. No more Lagos pride. Just the sweet peace of the deep waters. The wives moved as one, surrounding Adana. Their faces were both beautiful and terrible. Creatures of the deep, wearing human skin like borrowed clothes. Never! Adana clutched her grandmother's coral. The necklace blazed with sudden red light, therefore making the wives shriek and retreat. That coral, Mama Obinna hissed, scales rippling across her cheeks. Who dared give you the sacred coral? It's forbidden. My grandmother, Adana felt power thrumming through the beads. She taught me that true tradition empowers, not slaves. You've twisted Mamiwata's gifts, haven't you? Forced transformation instead of willing devotion. The blue light flickered. The wives paused their dance, confusion crossing their fish-like features. But before Mama Obinna could respond, the soup pot began to bubble and churn. Water shot upward, forming a column that touched the kitchen ceiling. A figure emerged, magnificent and terrible, half woman and half fish, her hair living snakes, her eyes deeper than ocean trenches. Gold bangles clinked at her wrists, and her scales shimmered with every color imaginable. Mamiwata! Mama Obinna fell to her knees, dropping her ladle with a clatter. My daughter, Mamiwata's voice shook the walls, making pots and pans rattle. You have corrupted my blessing. She turned to Mama Obina, who now looked small and shriveled. "I granted you power to guide, not to enslave. True power flows from willing hearts, not chains of flesh and scale." "But the old ways," Mama Obina began. "The old ways?" Mami Wata's laugh sounded like waves crashing. "You dare speak of tradition while wielding stolen power. Look what you've become. Not a priestess, but a tyrant." Mami Wata raised her hands. Pure white light flooded the kitchen, washing away the sickly blue glow. The wives gasped as their scales fell away, humanity returning in a rush of tears and trembling limbs. I remember Chichi touched her face, her eyes clear for the first time in months. I remember my mother's face. "Thank you," the wives wept, holding each other. "Thank you." Mama Obina remained kneeling, her power broken, her hair now simply grey, no longer moving like water. But Mami Wata wasn't finished. She turned to Adana, her eyes soft like morning tide. "You have shown wisdom beyond your years." The coral chose well. A smile played at her lips. "Would you accept my true blessing? Not as a slave, but as a daughter of your own choosing?" Adana looked at her coral necklace, then at the freed wives. She thought of her grandmother's words about old magic and new times learning to flow together like joining streams. "Yes," she said firmly, "but only if others may choose freely as well." "So be it." Mami Wata's voice rang with approval. "Let this place be transformed by truth and willing hearts." Dawn broke over a changed compound. Word spread quickly, therefore bringing women from neighboring villages, not to be enslaved, but to learn the true ways of water magic. The second kitchen became a place of healing and wisdom, where ancient knowledge was shared, not forced. Mama Obina, humbled by her mistakes, learned to serve rather than dominate. Under Mami Wata's guidance and Adana's watchful eye, she became the teacher she was always meant to be. That very day, Obina returned to the compound at dawn, his eyes haunted by that night's dreams of drowning. But when he saw Adana standing in the courtyard, power and wisdom radiating from her like sunlight, he fell to his knees. "My wife," his voice broke. "I dreamed of dark waters rising, of your face disappearing beneath the waves. I saw what my weakness, my blindness could have cost." He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "I chose tradition over truth, family name over your life. How can you ever forgive me?" Adana knelt beside him, taking his trembling hands in hers. "Stand up, my husband. The waters that could have drowned us will now be our strength." She touched his cheek, "but only if we face them together as equals." Therefore their love deepened and transformed, like a river finding its true course. Obina learned to see with new eyes, to question old ways without abandoning their wisdom. Together they built something stronger than blind tradition or modern pride. A bridge between two worlds, held up by respect, trust, and understanding. They say that on full moon nights you can still hear singing from the second kitchen, but now it's a song of joy, not bondage. And if you look carefully in the vapors coming from the cooking pot, you might see Adana, her coral beads glowing softly, teaching others the difference between true blessing and false power. For in Abuja, they now know, true power flows like water. It cannot be grasped or forced, only channeled with wisdom and accepted with an open heart. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to hear more tales like this. And remember, if your mother-in-law has a second kitchen that glows blue at night, you might want to think twice about eating there. Thank you for watching.